There's a very simple question. So when they're born and they are in an unhealthy, unsupportive, downright challenging household, we should be merciful to them.
Yeah, we should be very merciful.
Cut off their arms and legs and their head and be done with it.
Yeah.
Which is what happens in an abortion.
Yeah. Just make the suffering end.
Yeah. Because I don't understand the difference. None of these arguments apply. None of these arguments seem to apply to the delineation of birth, right? So he's not making any of the classic arguments around gestational periods, when does a life become a life, all of that's out the window. But the first one, we are going to take a bit of a look at this guy. I think he's in America, but he's got a bit of an interesting take.
He has.
That we are going to have a little look at. So let's have a little look at this guy's take, and then we're going to react to it.
Being in favor of reproductive rights, first and foremost, protects the life of the mother and protects the life of the person that is already living and is the person that is able to bring more life into this world should they choose. Furthermore, it protects the life of children. There are so many children that currently exist in this world that were forced to be born because of legislation, because of men that have decided for women. And so as a result, many children have grown up into a unsupportive, unhealthy, and outright challenging household that hasn't been a life that any child should live. And so being in favor of reproductive choice helps the life of children everywhere because they don't have to grow up in a world that dislikes them because they simply exist. Being in favor of reproductive.
So,
wow.
An interesting take from Kurt Kaufman, who is an associate minister of the American Baptist Churches USA, Peter. And this title of this little clip is Repro Rights, Protect Life. And how long is it? About 45 seconds. 45 seconds. There's a lot in there.
There's a lot. I just don't know where to begin.
Well, can we begin first by, we need to frame this. We did this in episode 1 or 2. You and I are men.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, normally that would apparently preclude us from having an opinion on this topic.
Yeah.
However, I would like to point out, apparently this guy is allowed to have an opinion. So I'm going to claim the right to have an opinion because he does.
To be fair, he could have a uterus. We just don't know.
That is very true. I've made some assumptions there.
Yeah, you have.
So on the assumption that him is allowed to talk about this, we're also going to talk about this.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good.
Permission granted.
All right. So he's a minister.
Whoa.
An
associate
minister. Okay. Right. So what comes to mind, first of all, for me is that the faith that he claims to have is the faith that he claims to have in Jesus Christ is based on the fact that Jesus Christ suffered more than anyone else had ever or will ever to rescue, to redeem a people for himself. Right. So how can he say that we should, because people might be born into a life of suffering, that we should just protect them by ending their life? I mean, should Mary have aborted baby Jesus? I mean, she should have on that basis.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? So he strikes a couple of points here, which do seem to now. And also, to be fair, you've made the assumption here that he believes in Jesus. I mean, I guess he's a minister of a Baptist church. It's probably a fair enough assumption. I wonder if it's the same Jesus that, as you say, died for our sins, rose again on the third day, is the good shepherd calling to his sheep. But who knows what his Christology is? I mean, based on this take, this is actually nothing to do. So it's only the imagery here. So this imagery that he's got for himself, he's got this get-up seems to be indicating he's a minister. There's often, I find with a lot of these sort of progressive Christian leaders, you'll often find they very much overdo. I'm not saying he's necessarily overdone it, but you often see a lot of
Yes.
maybe a little bit. Yeah, okay. But you see a lot of there's like there's always there's very often a dog collar or some sort of imagery there. They'll always often have robes on. They'll very much to sort of sit and present as I am a minister of the gospel visually. But if you took all that away and you took away associate minister, there's nothing in anything that he just said to suggest that he's a Christian.
Yeah, completely. Well, it would just everything he said suggests that he hates God and is in rebellion.
Correct. So we make the link because of what it says here. Let's run it again and we'll take it bit by bit, okay? Because there's a lot here to go through.
Being in favor of reproductive rights, first and foremost, protects the life of the mother.
Okay, so be in favor of reproductive rights, first and foremost, protect the life of the mother. So this is the common argument. So fine, that's the foundation. Okay, we'll go from there.
And protects the life of the person that is already living.
Okay, protect the life of the person already living.
At least he affirms the personhood. That's probably the only positive thing that I could say about any of this. He does affirm their personhood, which not everyone will.
Well, I will say that he affirmed their personhood. He did not affirm her womanhood or her motherhood. Don't know if you call. You see, I'm getting used to catching these things now, Peter. I'm starting to get in tune. But it's very subtle there, isn't it?
Yeah.
He did not affirm her womanhood or her motherhood. But anyway, so it protects the life of the person already living. Okay. I'd be interested to hear what that protection actually looks like.
Yeah.
What does it mean to say it protects that life? What abortion protects that life?
By ending it.
By ending a life that is current. Yeah. I don't get that, but anyway, let's see what it says.
And is the person that is able to bring more life into this world.
Yes, is able to bring more life into this world, which she is currently in the process, or they, them are currently in the process of doing. What him is in favor of is ending that now. So in what sense is that person who is bringing forth new life, is this some future state where they're in future going to bring forth new life? What's
Yeah. And how would we know when we should continue to allow that life to grow based on what if we're all about protecting that life, and you're saying that we might sometimes need to protect it by ending it? Who's making that judgment and on what basis?
Yeah, sounds slightly twisted to me, but anyway.
Should they choose. Furthermore, it protects the life of children. There are so many children that currently exist in this world that were forced to be born.
Whoop. Okay, so it protects children.
Were you forced to be born?
I think there was a certain amount of force applied to me.
Yeah.
So I'm given to it. So we just need to make sure we've got this straight. So abortion, reproductive rights, protects children. Peter.
With arguments like this, you do have to you have to pretend that there is something magical about the birth canal, and once a baby passes through it, it is then granted full personhood and human rights, or I should say birth rights. And you just apply the logic that he's using to any situation with a human being who's been forced to be born, and you say, okay, so children who are in the foster care system and they've just had a horrendous start to life, should we just get rid of them all? I mean, where does this end?
Well, this is the thing, right? So we've got we've got the sad imagery of a young girl here on this, where we've stopped it on this screenshot. We've got the sad music. Obviously, we need the sad music. We've got this image of a young girl who looks very sad, and she's looking longingly out of a window. What does this gentleman think should happen to this girl?
And what do you think? What do you think this young girl is wishing for?
Yeah. So this is obviously giving us the impression that this is a very unhappy child in an unhappy family, I guess, is the imagery that we're supposed to be looking at here. So he's saying that these children should not have to have been in this situation. Okay. Well, the obvious question is, well, this child is in this situation, so what should we do now? I hesitate to say that he would suggest that this young girl should be killed. I don't think he would say that.
Yeah.
But logically,
Yeah.
I don't understand the difference.
Yeah.
What he is saying, again, if we are to assume that this still is the metaphor that he's going for, she should have been killed before she was born, because this situation is too heartrending and too difficult.
Yeah, they should have given her a consent form in the womb.
Right. They should not have forced her to be born
Yeah.
in this situation.
Yeah. But it's like, by what standard are you going to apply this? By what standard are you going to say that a life is worth living? And again, we have to assume that he is in some way sees himself as a Christian. And by what standard is he saying all of this? He's making the claim that it's bad for someone to suffer, for a child to suffer. To which we would say, well, by what standard? Why is it a sad thing? Why is it bad that people suffer at all? And if you're a Christian, a Bible believing Christian, then you have an answer to that. But you have to also take the entirety of Scripture, and you cannot look at Scripture, you cannot even have a gospel whilst maintaining the position that abortion is in any way defensible. Like I said at the top, like the gospel completely falls apart. So it is by what standard? Who's going to judge that someone's life is not happy enough?
He's also making the assumption that abortions are only happening by women who are in difficult situations. Now, of course, a lot of them are, but that's not all.
No, we know that a huge amount of abortions are repeat abortions, and it is a form of birth control.
We saw, I forgot her name, was it Lily Allen, who said how many abortions she'd had, and it's like, well, how rich is she, and how, so, what, you can't give a child a good life, really? I mean, I don't understand. But also, it's a very westernized view, isn't it, of this sort of thing? Like, you're basically calling for quite a lot of countries in the world to not be able to reproduce. How many countries would you apply? Well, let's apply it at what in the UK they would call child poverty, which is, it's a discussion for another time. Apply that level to any of
Anywhere in
about
the
sort of
developing
60,
world,
70 countries, and you wouldn't allow them to have any children at all. Is that what he's saying? Because this child might suffer. And what's suffering? Is that physical suffering, mental suffering, financial suffering? These are all relative terms as well. So anyway.
Yeah.
Because of legislation, because of men that have decided for women. And so as a result.
Okay, so because of legislation and because of men who have decided for women. Right. So I mentioned this right at the start. So this is a man who's got an opinion about abortion. He's not going to be, I can't imagine, shouted down by women going, "You're a man, you don't have an opinion about abortion. No uterus, no opinion." Well, he's got an opinion. So is that allowed? Is that okay?
Well, he's got the correct opinion, so
That's true.
it is allowed. Yeah.
He's allowed.
Yeah.
But he's a man, we assume. Fine.
Many children have grown up into a unsupportive, unhealthy, and outright challenging household.
Did he say challenging household?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he said downright challenging.
Downright challenging. Okay.
Let's hear it again.
That have decided for women. And so as a result, many children have grown up into a unsupportive, unhealthy, and outright challenging household.
Yeah. So unsupportive, unhealthy households. Again, I want to ask this very simple question. So when they're born and they are in an unhealthy, unsupportive, downright challenging household, we should be merciful to them.
Yeah, we should be
and
very merciful.
cut off their
Yeah.
arms and legs and their head and be done with it.
Yeah.
Which is what happens in an abortion.
Yeah. Just make the suffering end.
Yeah. Because I don't understand the difference. None of these arguments apply. None of these arguments seem to apply to the delineation of birth, right? So he's not making any of the classic arguments around gestational periods. When does a life become a life? All of that's out the window. He's only talking about children who are forced. And I put that in quotes. But okay, fair enough. I'll use your word. Children who are forced into life and into a household that is unsupportive and unhealthy. So the same applies to them before and after they're born, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think another thing I would say is because obviously this is most reasonable people will be able to see that this is insane. It's a completely ridiculous argument. Yeah, incoherent, inconsistent. You can't. Yeah, but it is the most. It's a very extreme version of something which, like, a view that a lot of people hold. This whole idea of like, well, I'm holistically pro-life. So, and you get a lot of this in the church as well, like people who are just terrified of saying anything black and white about abortion. They just won't do it, even if they, screech endlessly about social justice. They just cannot bring themselves to say anything about this issue by using this, I'm holistically pro-life, or like womb to the tomb, which is, just other ways of saying like trying to appear superior morally, and this sort of pharisaical demeanor, and looking down at, people like us who would just say absolutely no in any circumstance. But this is the logical extension of that kind of idea that people suffer all over the world, and we should really focus on just having less of that.
Yeah.
So this is it, in a way, if you're going to hold to that position, this is kind of the logical extension.
I agree. I think a lot of people who would say that they are pro-choice, to use the euphemistic term, a lot of them would be horrified by this argument as well. But I would simply just point out to them, what has he taken from your position to a logical end that you would disagree with? There's a lot of people, particularly in the UK, who would say like there's a cutoff of gestation. So what is it? Is it 20 weeks in the UK, or was it earlier than that? I can't remember.
I think it's a little bit later.
Was it 24 maybe?
I think so.
Yeah, there's some line, well, until the recent amendment which decriminalized it till birth, but that aside, officially it's 24 weeks. I don't understand what the difference is supposed to be between the two. But someone who would say, that's about right, we've got it, where it should be, this is the right compromise, would look at this and go, well, that's just clearly shocking. And I go, yes, it is shocking. Take what you're hearing and continue to apply it. But yeah.
That hasn't been a life that any child should live. And so,
not a life that any child should live. Any child. Again, it's just smacks of like modern Western ideals of, if you're not able to dress like me and sit in a nice warm studio with a lovely microphone, then basically you shouldn't be allowed to live.
I mean, how many people throughout all of history should just never have?
Well, we've talked about this before, haven't we? I mean, this really does preclude Mary from giving birth to the Son of God, to the incarnate, Messiah. how many more difficult circumstances could a woman have been in? She was unmarried. She was in a backwards part of, year zero Judea.
Yeah.
She is going to face incredible shame. She's going to face judgment. She's young. Like, all of those circumstances are grave. They're really serious and really difficult.
Mm.
So by this man's standards, Jesus is going to be born into such a difficult situation that Mary should have had the choice to kill Jesus
Yeah.
long before, he was going to be born, raised, and give himself as a sacrifice.
And suffer on our behalf.
And suffer. No child should suffer. Who wants children to suffer? No one wants children to suffer. But how on earth does that give anyone the right to kill them?
Yeah, and he's the one actually positively advocating for suffering.
Anyway, another young girl who he probably wants dead there. Let's carry on.
So being in favor of reproductive choice helps the life of children everywhere.
Being in favor of reproductive choice helps the lives of children everywhere, including this young woman, apparently.
Wow.
According to the music. And I'm struggling to follow that, Pete. I mean, have you got anything?
No. Did he misspeak?
He can't have misspoken. It's a 45-second edited clip. Like, what? Doesn't make any sense. Let's watch it to the end and pick it up.
Because they don't have to grow up in a world that dislikes them because they simply exist.
What?
Let's create a world where...
What?
Let's create a world where we stop them from existing in the first place.
I'm genuinely baffled. I mean, look, we have serious disagreements with these sorts of people, but generally they're more logical than this. Now, I can never get my head around how anyone approves of this stuff, but there are arguments where you go, that is a difficult one. Yep, that's a hard one. Yep, I can see why you're saying that. I don't agree, but I can see it. That was 45 seconds of, as far as I'm concerned, pure evil. Thank you so much for watching. If you like that, please do remember to give us a nice big thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more episodes that are coming soon, please subscribe to the channel. We've got plenty more coming your way.